Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome to another interview on my channel. It has been a long time coming, and I'm super excited today to have beautiful Dilara Pataudi, I got it right, I think, with us, to talk about her new book, which is called The Healing Language of Horses. And this just feels perfectly in alignment with the Elemental series that I did, where my tagline was giving voice to the unseen realms of nature. And so this just feels like a beautiful extension of that, to be moving into the animal kingdom and giving space for their voice to be heard through the horses in this instance. So I'm super excited about this conversation. I've actually got goosebumps right now just thinking about it. So welcome, Dilara. Thank you so much for wanting to have this interview.
Thank you so much for having me. I also feel really excited, and I love your introduction. It's so spot on, giving a voice to the unseen realms, because it's interesting. What I feel is that voice is always within us to be heard as well, and it's just a reflection of holding space to receive all the information that's available for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Giving space and time to it.
And, definitely.
Yeah, and knowing that it's there, and that we have this ability to do this within us. So in a way, actually, I think that's where I'd quite like to start, is to just invite you to give a little bit of background as to maybe your relationship with the horses, but also how you came to be able to hear them and to trust that you were hearing them as well. I'd love to know a bit about that.
Great question. Yeah, I love the trust piece, because that's actually come up quite a few times this week with questions from people who I feel everyone's a natural communicator with the animal kingdom, but it's just trusting that what we're experiencing is real, and is valid and can be acknowledged. So my background is, I was really lucky when I was young. My father introduced me to horses from a really young age. He plays polo, and so he would take me to the polo ground with him, and I would be around the horses all the time. And what happened almost from the beginning was horses became a solace for me. I felt safe, I felt heard, I felt that they were healing me all the time. And my relationship with my father was quite turbulent. So what would happen is he'd take me into that environment, and then something would happen. And I was so sensitive, something would happen that really upset me, and then I would run to the horses and just hold space. And I remember I was about 7 years old when I had this marker moment in my life where I really realized, okay, this is something, this is real, this is happening. Like this horse, it was with one particular horse, and I find she's really holding space for me. I feel different when I come and spend time with her. It was this very kind of illuminated experience where I just kind of kept it in my system, and then carried that experience throughout all the years up to this point. And I definitely went down after that, when I got a bit older in my teens, down a more generic route of, I've always ridden horses as well. I was a rider. I started training polo ponies. I was a groom, which meant I looked after the horses behind the scenes of the game. And I definitely carried that belief system of a horse is there to be ridden. So that was really strong in me for a long time, and I definitely identified with myself as a rider. And so then what happened was, I was working in Argentina, and one of my horses here, Florenzo, is on the front cover. I just bought him. He was my first horse that I bought for myself, which, even saying that, I think sounds so crazy, because it's like he's more my teacher and my guardian than I am his. So anyway, I had a really intense fall off him at the end of January. And I remember I landed flat on my back on rock solid grass. And it was this big awakening moment where I literally just came to, and I felt my whole timeline shift. Wow. It was like I really damaged a lot of parts of my body, but what really shifted was this perspective of, okay, one, I'm not invincible. And so, you know, I'm vulnerable in the sense of what I've been doing up to this point doesn't work anymore. It needs to kind of crumble and be let go of. And so after that, I worked one more season, and then my relationship with Florenzo, he came over to England, and my relationship with him just deepened and deepened, and he began to show me where I wasn't listening, you know, where I could listen more, or where I could connect with him more, or where I just needed to wake up. Really, I really needed to wake up to what he was showing me. And his behavior was really difficult, you know, but it was more just the way that he was communicating with me. And then after that season, so I guess that would be September 2012, I decided that it was time for me to give back to the horses. That was just this message that came through. It was like, now it's time to give back. So then I started training, and I just went on this kind of marathon of training in all these different modalities. The first one was equine craniosacral, which is a very, very light hands-on healing modality, which is kind of born out of osteopathy. And my craniosacral teacher, Maureen Rogers, is, I mean, she's just phenomenal. She completely helped me to open up my perspective of what was happening in the equine world. And that shifted a lot of my energy, because I saw how much healing was needed. And okay, actually, every horse that I've ever ridden, and every horse that I see around me that's being ridden, and it's quite a big statement, but every horse is out of balance physically.
Wow.
You know, yeah, it was this huge.
God, I feel really emotional listening to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is it's amazing that you feel that, because it's a really big deal. You know, when we think about, okay, well, what is the percentage of people in the industry who ride? So it must be like 80%, you know. And so then I was going back into the polo world and treating horses with craniosacral, and just seeing everywhere. I was just saying, you know, wow, like that horse is, you know, that, okay, I'll just put it lightly, like that horse is out of balance, that horse is out of balance. And it was so obvious and in my face that I stopped. I was like, I don't know how to process this. Yeah. And so for a while I stopped going to polo. I was still treating horses, but so that journey really deepened over time, and I again started to wake up to, okay, well, who am I in this? You know, what's my contribution to this so far, and what can I do now? And that kind of led me to go down the therapeutic route for myself, but also for humans. So I trained in like human craniosacral, and then NLP and hypnosis and lots of different things. And I worked with humans one-on-one I say humans, you know, I mean people. I worked with people one-on-one for a year, and did a lot of inner work myself. And the horses have always been supporting me through that. They've always been there and present. But through all that inner work, I started to realize that the mirror element of the human and the horse, it just, at some point, it became very, very relevant. And I was watching, when I was treating horses with craniosacral, I was watching the energy between the guardian, like the owner, and the horse, and how if it wasn't compatible, if there wasn't a resonance, the horse wouldn't heal as deeply. And I experienced that one or two times. And then working with the human as an individual, when they changed their energy or they touched upon something deep within themselves, the horse would just like relax and just go into a deep healing state.
Wow.
Yeah, it was another big wake-up call. And because then I obviously started to look at myself more. I was like, wow, how am I affecting my horses? By that time I had 3, and I now have 5. But yeah, that was at that point I only had 3. And the journey just deepened and deepened. And then when I moved to Dorset, which was in 2018, my intention was to set up a sacred space just for me and the herd, because I'd been running a business at my old place. And so that was just this message that came through. It was really strong. It was just, you know, you have to move to the sea and just set up a sacred space for you and your herd. And so that's what I did, and that's what we all did. We all moved here. And in October 2018, I went to Egypt and did this amazing meditation in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, and came back. And I remember I've always noticed that my horses have wanted to connect with me at a deeper level. I've always knew that they had messages, that they have a voice, and I just had never made the commitment to really open up to what that was. You know, I was always just kind of putting it off or doing something else. And I got back in October, and I remember just picking up this A4 notebook and going outside and sitting in the field, and they were all there just waiting. And I just said to them, okay, I'm ready to listen, you know, and then I started writing. So that's how the book really came to be. I feel like I could go so much deeper into that story, but that's the summary. I just wrote every day with them for a few hours for 2.5 years. And yeah, and then last year in April began transcribing everything and putting it into book format, which in and of itself was a completely different process. But in terms of hearing them and how that works for me, because I feel like this is helpful for people who potentially want to connect with their animals at that level. I feel that it's about finding the medium that works for you as an individual, in terms of, you know, we can connect with everything. We can hear messages in everything, in nature, like, you know, with animals, nature, ourselves, other people, the elements. Like if you're in the ocean, you can hear the voice of the ocean, but it's just working out which medium is relevant for you and available for you. And for me, writing is my medium, you know. And so for some people it's dance, for some people it's singing, for some people it's playing music, or, you know, it's just finding that realm. And so the way that I channel messages with the horses is primarily through feeling and writing, and then, you know, translating those feelings and those messages in my body into the written word, because otherwise they just have nowhere to go, you know.
No, I totally understand that. I had a very similar experience with when I was connecting with the elemental realms. It would be a very similar, especially through the written word for me, was my way through it. Yeah. Wow. There's so much in what you've shared. It's a really beautiful and profound story. And just like listening to what you're saying about, like, that we see horses for riding, just that relationship that we have with the world around us as humans, like they're kind of here for us to do what, you know, to serve, to be in service to us, rather than us all being on an equal kind of footing, you know.
Totally.
Equal beings. And
Totally. Yeah. And I feel like that perspective shift is only like a choice away, you know.
But you've got to have that light bulb moment. You've got to have that moment of clarity, I guess, which is maybe what your book offers. What would you like to share about? I imagine there's so much in the book. So I just downloaded the book before we started, and we had a little share beforehand. And I was just saying, like, I just connecting with that energy of the book. It was so deep. There's something so deep in the message that's coming through the horses. But so I haven't read the whole book yet. So what feels most alive in you right now to share about their message?
I feel that, again, I mean, you'll see it on the cover, the whole book is filled with like the collective messages of unity. And it's interesting that you just touched on that element of, you know, shifting the perspective from animals are here for us to we are all here on equal footing together with each other. And I remember saying to people, when I started telling people that when people asked me what I was doing, I was like, oh, I'm working on a book, but I didn't say a lot about it. And I remember one day I just started writing, you know, that the horse's message is, and their intention is to help us awaken to that perspective that you just mentioned, that we are all here together, and that we're all one, and that we're all mirroring each other, and that you can't ever not be connected to something, you know. And that's their main driving force, I would say, is that to help us awaken to that fact. And in the book, they cover lots of different tributaries of that, like how to live from your heart center, trust, finding your joy, present stillness, oneness, and what that is from their perspective. And I feel though that the general header is just to, it's just, awaken to that deeper level, awaken to the reality of what's possible and the connection. And because when we do that, there's so much harmony that can happen, and that's what I personally experience with my herd, which is just this stillness and this harmony. And it's not all the time, of course, because energy is always moving, but it's there and it's very real and it's available for everybody. So I would say that's the biggest message. And I do feel that the way that we have treated or worked with horses up to this point for the majority of people in the industry, I don't know, it just needs to change.
God, I feel so emotional. Like when you say it, I don't know quite what effect it's having on me, but just.
Do you know what the emotion is?
It just like this deep sadness of the mistreatment of just, I think, I know it's more than just the horses, but just our what's the word? I want to say naivety, or that's not quite it. There's like just our lack of respect for nature, just for life, like our lack of like the sacred, maybe, or or honoring of beings. Yeah, I don't know. I can't quite put it into words, but yeah. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I rode horses when I was younger, a little bit, not lots. I had a friend who had horses and spent quite a bit of time. Interesting to kind of go, there's just so much more going on there than I would have been present to as well.
Totally, yeah. I hear you. I mean, you worded that beautifully. It's the honoring of life, really, and again, it's. For some reason, I keep wanting to say waking up. I don't know why. It just comes again.
But actually, that's what I'm beginning to think. I think, actually, I'm just deeply moved by this awakening that I'm hearing through your story and through your relationship with the horses. Just it's like, this is really happening on so many levels and in every arena right now.
Totally.
That people are in places where they are listening to the voice of life coming through that particular thing. I can't think of
totally. And I feel like it's this collective reflection. Like that's what we get. Like if I'm even seeing somebody, like, this is so random, but somebody who say works in, I don't know, media or advertisement, and just in their job, just suddenly having those aha moments of feeling like the reflection of what they're doing come back at them.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what happens, like so to say with the horses, that typical aha moment is when I was treating a horse and the owner was in a certain energy, and then she changed her energy and the horse relaxed, and I recognized the mirror, and then the first thing I got was that's a reflection of me and my mirroring my herd and vice versa. And it's when we can experience the communication of life coming at us as a reflection that we're offering it. And you're right. I feel that too, that there is this, it's just like people are just popping open, and in that we end up feeling so much more and all our senses are on.
It can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I did have one question that was arising as you were talking as well. So I was seeing like the herd, and they're all so I mean the herd is like a unity consciousness. It's not so much, so I guess you've got the individual, I feel like I'm going somewhere else here and I don't know where I'm going. You've got the individual horses, and then you've got the herd collective consciousness as well. Okay, this is where, so I wondered as well, do you have a sense of where that consciousness comes from?
Such a good question.
It's very unique, right? Like each species is so unique.
Totally, yeah. So I feel personally that, and again, this could like change from herd to herd, and whatever energy needs to come in is again relevant and appropriate for that person and that place and everything. I feel this very deep galactic energy when I'm with my horses. I mean, I have chills just thinking about that. And especially two of them, when they go deep into, like, I call it a meditative state, when they go deep into that state, if you look at them and observe them and tune into them and feel them, it's so galactic, like it's so from the stars, it's so way out there. And you know, it could even be coming from a place that I just really am not consciously aware of right now, but that is what I feel around them. And I know that you know Bridget Nielsen, so the hybrid kids as well. I mentioned the hybrid kids, is that relevant? Yeah. So the hybrid kids have come in a few times, just once or twice, with, again, Florenzo, the horse I mentioned earlier. And so I would say it's definitely more of a galactic energy. And there is the greater horse collective as well, which of course has its own field and its own morphogenesis and everything. And every horse is, just like us, connected to the greater horse collective. And when they're really tuned into that collective, they're also super grounded. And it's really obvious that that energy is coming through them. And when they're not so connected to the collective, you see it in like physical attributes, like because they're less in their body, because they're less connected to the source that they come from in their DNA. And so that's really interesting to observe as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, totally. But I'm really curious. I'm like, how did the hybrid children part come in?
Yeah.
And if people don't know about the hybrid children, you might have to go and do a little bit of investigating. Go and check out Bridget Nielsen's old material from quite a few years back, and Bashar as well. He speaks in channels and there are anchor channels about them. But yeah, I'm just curious, what was the correlation with that and the horses? Was it just something you felt?
It was definitely just something I felt. I say it was something that I felt really. It was almost like I was hit with it. It was super strong when it happened the first time. And I had obviously, I only found out and really awakened to the hybrid children energy in, again, 2018. That was obviously a big year for me. And I have a top field here. It's on top of a hill and has a big slope to it. And it's where all the horses go in the winter. So I was up there with them and I was just tuning into them and standing with them, and we were hanging out. And it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I remember I turned around to walk back to the house and I just felt this huge, but like playfully light energy, like calling me back. And I was like, oh, it's not time to go yet. So I turned around and I just stared. I do not see anything in terms of energy. For me, I'm a real feeler. And I just stared in this one direction. And I was just staring and I just was like hooked into this one direction in the field. And then Florenzo, who was eating, near me. There was nothing going on. It was a completely still afternoon. He stopped and he looked up like this. And he just looked in the direction that I was staring. And we just stood there connecting with this energy. And what came through was the words, the hybrid kids. Because when I asked him what was going on, and he showed me the image of like Bridget and the work I was doing with her. And I had a session with her about whether I had hybrid kids or not. And so he showed me that. And that was the connection. I felt it kind of ripple through my whole body. And that was kind of it. Yeah. But it was so secure. I was like, yeah, that's okay, cool. That's that. Yeah. And I felt it. And what was interesting is like, I felt that they were actually moving through him and he was offering me that kind of vision and experience. So like, if he hadn't been there, I wonder, would the space that was held in that moment have been different? Because he has this huge energy and he's so grounded and he's so flexible with his consciousness. So, yeah. And then the same thing happened on this side of the land as well. So it's a very similar experience.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing actually. And I sometimes think, oh, what if people listening to that, it's not specific enough, or I didn't see a physical, but it doesn't matter. Like, the energy, the energy and language is palpable regardless of whether you see something or not. It's real.
Yeah. When you feel it so clearly, it's as real and as palpable as the everyday material, isn't it? It's
totally. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Wait, I want to ask you, how do you experience, what's your journey, I want to ask you about the elementals, basically.
Oh, okay. A specific question? I'm going to be really honest, actually. So if anybody watching this hasn't seen me for like a year or two, my connection with the elementals has gone quite quiet, which is really fascinating. And there was a little part of me, definitely, when we spoke about doing this interview, I thought, oh, I wonder if it's going to open up again. Yeah, what kind of question?
Well, when I was talking about my journey of hearing and experiencing, again, like the language of the horses and of the horse collective, that was the question that rose in me. I was like, well, I wonder what Layla May's journey is and what your experience is, and how you connect with the elemental energy, whether it's through feeling or sight or sound, or what's your...
Yeah, I think I'm very similar to you, actually. So it'd be feeling. Sometimes I see, but I see them. I've seen beings in my inner eye, in my inner vision. So I might see a being, but I feel it. I mostly feel it, I would say. And then also the writing for me, back in the earlier days when I first started connecting with them, I do a lot of channeled writing, and they were coming through on the writing. And if I started doing rhyming poetry, I would really know that was the elementals as well. But sometimes when I've channeled them as well, it's like getting a pocket of, I think you described it like this earlier, it's like getting a pocket of information, and then in a way I translate it. So I'm not like a trance channel when I connect with them, but I will hear and see, not see visually, and a little bit blurry, but yeah, it's just like getting a pocket of information, and then I translate that in a way into...
Yes, I really feel that. And that's what it is yeah, I can really resonate with that. And how did you actually get into the elementals? Sorry, people watching this might already know this. I'm really curious.
Yeah, and no, it's great. I did a training back in 2009, which was soul reading, energy healing, and channeling, and that I'd already been kind of connected in with the angelic realm from about the age of 16. My mum took me to Glastonbury. And it was my first experience of seeing with my inner eye, I think. Definitely had experiences when I was younger, but they're very blurry. But when I did this training, after the training, when I went out in nature, it's hard to remember exactly what happened now. But it just opened up my whole perception, and I started spending a lot of time in nature and just walking. And I was living in town at the time, and then I'd come back and write, and it would come through, and then I started creating. I would get a lot of downloads as well, and I would get I was getting quite a lot of visions, and I would see things. Like I was shown this entrance into the side of the tour in Glastonbury. I just woke up one night with this full-on vision of how it was like the capital of the Fae in England, or it was an amazing time. I think that was around 2011. I was just having so many images, and I made this really big it was like a gateway. It was like a fairy gateway. And I made it to house some sacred geometry jewelry that I was making at the time for an exhibition. And then again, I woke up one night and I'd been shown that I'd made my own fairy portal, and it was like an initiation into the fairy realms. I was just like, wow, that's so cool.
That's so cool.
So cool. Yeah.
And it's so as you were talking, I was feeling this element of how amazing is it? How do I word this? Hang on. Like, it's so much fun. That's
Yeah.
what it's so much fun to open up our senses that way and to be able to connect. Because again, whether it's just because it's a contrast of the world that most people have grown up in terms of like, this is separate from this, and you don't feel everything that you're meant to be feeling, and then as that opens up, I find it really fun, which is not a word I would usually use because I tend to be way too serious about everything. But and yeah, but it is, and I feel like maybe was it a really fun?
Oh my God, it was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so fun, and it was interesting, like you sharing the messages that you were getting, like what's their overall kind of message. And there was definitely like an overall message from the elementals, which was very much about unity as well, but around innocence and playfulness and joy and being heart-centered. And I think it's a very similar message, because this is the message coming through, right? That it's like there is an awakening to a whole different way of being. And so that's the message coming through. That's the message coming through, because that's the way actually reality is. And so like there's different ways of trying, reality is different to how, like you say, how we've been taught things are. It was so much fun. And actually it's been a little bit painful in the last couple of years not seeing things quite in the way. I think I've just had to go on a bit of a dark night of the soul kind of journey, deepening, and I can feel this deeper learning coming through right now. But so much fun, much fun, just getting to be like an adult child, really.
Amazing. I love that. Oh my God, I love that. And that's amazing.
And I think,
you're right.
Like I was just going to say, it's I think this is a really important energy when we are connecting in this way with nature, is that curiosity, like to go in with a kind of not knowing and a wonder and a curiosity.
Totally. And there are so many things that just came to my mind when we were talking, like, yes, to touch on the curiosity piece, there's this message that the horses always give me of heart energy is a curious energy. Like heart, like the energy of the heart, like the heart doesn't pretend to know, the heart is just present and thus always curious.
Beautiful.
Because how can you know what's going to happen in the present moment? You don't, you just experience it. And and you going on the dark night of the soul in that way, just going deeper, I feel like it's maybe a different way of connecting with the elementals, but without having like the same experiences, but just that was like an opening for you, and now you're ready to go deeper, but you're always connected to them within you because you've already had those experiences.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Nice.
What did you say? There was something you said then about the oh no, I don't know, it's gone. About the curiosity of the heart. There was just something that I felt like I wanted to ask you about. No, it's gone.
It's okay, it might come back. It wants to be expressed.
Yeah. So how has life changed for you through this journey of like really taking the time to listen to their message, and how has it changed you as a person, do you think?
Well, a few words came up then. One is commitment. Is I really connecting with them and listening to them helped me realize so isn't the right word, but it helped me feel on so many different levels how much this type of work that we're talking about is needed. And so that kind of created this drive or thirst in me to connect with it more. I was like, I want to just do it. I want to release it. I need everybody to know that this is happening. I became very committed to it. So I feel it so much in my throat, like speaking their voice, and I'm not actually speaking their voice. And for me, writing is the way, but that just felt like such an important piece. And so commitment was a big thing, like to go out every day and sit and write with them, even when I didn't want to, That was a big commitment. And yeah, I would say like part of one of my learnings here is discipline. I can be really disciplined and I can be the total opposite. So it created this consistency and like this focus of energy between us that, you know, involved commitment, discipline, and thus also expansion, because I was doing so much inner work as well and questioning myself on so many levels. But the book I never questioned. It was like, I'm just doing this, and then it just, I never questioned it. It was just there all the time, happening in me as an energy. But the realization of how much it was needed was a big deal.
Yeah.
And because I went through a few breakdown moments of just, again, tapping into that feeling of realizing how, unfortunately, how abused the energy of the animal kingdom has been, and learning to allow that to be present in my system was huge, because I think I contributed to that for years, but also to just acknowledge that, yeah, that's in my collective too. You know, I can't say like, oh, everybody's wrong. It's so, you know, it's just allowing that to be present in me was a big deal, because I feel it on such a deep level. And what else? Yeah, another thing that came to mind was last summer I wrote a poetry book, and I love poetry. I love writing poetry. I don't read that much of it, actually, which I'm planning on changing now. And it was very interesting. I just started putting the horse book together. I just started transcribing everything. I had like one more notebook to finish with them. And then I was organizing all my files, and I suddenly saw this, like all these poems, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll just pull these into this file and just call it Poetry from an Empty Mind. And that was just the file name. And then I was like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'll just keep, I don't even know how I thought it. It was just like, I'll keep adding files to that file, I guess. And then literally this huge energy just started coming through me from about July or June to September. And it was just all of the way I translated that, as you said, it was just poems, which was like, and that was very healing for me, because it was all centered around my relationship with nature, my father, my childhood, you know, sexuality, men, like so many different healing elements of my being just started full on coming out into this book. And I took my phone and my notebook with me everywhere, because I could feel it. I was like, this is really all out now. So then I turned that into a book and I released it at the beginning of April. And that was huge, because again, maybe that's why the voice piece was coming up so much, because I felt that it was, this whole journey has been this very deep time for me to speak my truth and to clear my, like, get my voice out there. I speak my truth is the main thing, and I'm still learning how to do that. But the horses have been, the horse book was kind of like this steady energy in the background supporting me while I did that. And it was never about the poetry book. It just ended up happening the way that it did. And that gave me this clearance in a way to, one, have the experience of self-publishing a book, but also to just release whatever energy was in me that needed to come out, and ultimately connect with people. And I also realized it changed me, because I realized how much I do want to connect with people, you know, and I have had a tendency to be very much the opposite. And so, yeah, I guess a lot of ways it's changed me, and my life's changed. Yeah, and I feel that it will continue to do so, because the horses are always going to have something to say. You know?
Are you still sitting with them and listening, or is it changed now so that you can actually publish the book and stuff?
Well, for a while, which is why I can relate to what you were saying about connecting with the elementals, is when I started typing everything up and then started the process of actually putting it into a book, I stopped sitting with them and writing, because all of that time was then put into, also the poetry book was coming out, so it was put into these two birthing the projects. And that, I did find that quite painful. I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing what my essence wants to do, you know, but then if I don't do this, it's not going to happen. So how do I find that balance?
Yeah.
And but I was just saying to someone earlier, like, that was actually very hard, but when I look at it now, sitting here with the poetry book out and the horse book released, I'm like, yeah, that was nothing. It was totally fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And essential.
Like, yeah, totally. Yeah. And so am I sitting with them now? I have a poetry notebook and a horse notebook, and I'm not sitting with them every day because I've just been so focused on this release. But so no, at the moment.
I have a question. I
have
a question as well. Sorry to interrupt. That's really weird.
No, go for it.
Can you hear them? Because I realize I can tune into the elemental realms sort of wherever I am. Like if I say I'm not connected, I hear instantly I am, and then I start seeing things. But I wondered, can you connect in with them when you're not actually with them?
Completely, yeah. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And it's like the way I experience it is almost like, okay, so I, like when you were just asking me that question, it's a feeling of, it's like a searching for tuning into them. And then as soon as I do make the decision to do that, it's like they meet me, you know?
It's just tuning ourselves in like a radio station, isn't it, to the frequency. Like if everything's frequency, then we just have to, I probably just haven't been dialing myself in properly, you know, like
but there's always a reason for that.
Absolutely. And actually, as we were talking, I was thinking, oh my God, I've been tuning into this like deep divine feminine essence thing and channeling that into jewelry for the last 6 months. So it's like,
it's still, you're still always connected and you're always present with whatever energy needs to come through you at the time. And it's helpful for others as well.
Wow, gosh, I just love this so much. I just want to go and sit with horses. We actually, there are horses out the back of where I'm living now. I've moved here sort of 3 months ago, and it's really nice to feel the presence of horses, but it's going to be interesting how I look at that now as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just had this image, like if you get the physical book, the hard copy, then I don't know, I saw you like taking the book out with the horses and just letting the horses connect with the herd energy. Could maybe be something. But also, and just letting them hold space for you by showing up. It sounds so simple, but it's so powerful.
Yeah, beautiful. So there is another question arising as well. So and I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it do you ever ride your horses?
No, I don't. But it's such a good question. Because
gosh, and how is that to give up? And how is that to give up riding?
Totally. So it's really hard. Oh my gosh. It was really hard. I actually stopped riding them completely in 2015, so quite a while ago. And my reason was because I was treating them myself, and I was also working with another healer, and we were treating them together. And I was riding Olympia, who is one of my mares, one of the female horses, and I just felt like I felt like I was forcing her to do something, and it didn't sit well with me at all. I was like, no, I can't. Like, I wouldn't want anybody to ever force me into anything ever. So why am I doing this? And I remember just kind of getting off her one day and being like, no, I've had enough. Like, I'm not going to do this again. Even though she would still be up for it. She's a very focused, amazing spirit, but it just was not aligned with where I was moving into. And so I stopped then, and then I went on this whole journey of, I went to the complete extreme where I would go on Facebook and see somebody riding their dressage horse, and I would just start crying. Not because I missed it, but because I couldn't understand why people were still riding. You know, I was like, what is going on? Like, I just couldn't. I had completely exited like the equine industry matrix, you know, and I was like, what?
Oh my God.
What's happening? Like,
why is God. I can just so relate to that kind of feeling. Yeah. Once you connect with nature on a different level, it's just a mad world out there.
Totally, I can imagine actually, And so then when we moved here, you know, that just obviously carried on. I wasn't riding them, but I would do things like I'd maybe do some in-hand work so that I could connect with them, because they had been, especially 2 of them, they'd been ridden their whole lives. Wow. And they were like 18, 19 at that point. And again, I'm asking myself now, like, is that just a belief system that I thought I had to keep up with that routine that they had going? and potentially it was. And so then we moved to Dorset again. Obviously, I wasn't riding them, but then I would go through waves of just thinking like, God, I just like really want to ride a horse. And like my body, I was like, it's so good for my body. My body loves it as well. Like for so many physical reasons. And I would do things like I would get Olympia and I'd ask her if I could just sit on her without any tack or anything. And sometimes she said yes, sometimes she said no. And then when she said yes, I would just jump on. And then we started doing shamanic journeys together with me sitting on her. And that was really amazing, actually. And then what happened was in 2019, it just kind of hit a plateau. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to ride. I didn't know how to handle it. I was like, I was resenting the 4 horses that I had because I could ride them. And I was projecting all of my stuff onto them, and I knew I was doing that. And so I was like, what do I do? And I decided to buy a horse that I would ride. And it totally felt like the right decision. And what ended up happening, long story short, is that I met Layla, who is my 3-year-old. She's now 3. She was a year when we first met. And she was just down the road, as we call them, a yearling. And I had met her when she was a foal, because one of my neighbors told me that there was this foal, and I never even thought about buying her then. And I met her and I was like, yeah, cool. Okay, so I can bring Layla home and then I can train her without any tack or anything. And then we can have this amazing riding relationship. And, that could still happen. But and then I saw pretty quickly that it probably wasn't going to happen ever, because the connection that I have with them energetically and on the ground is so vast and mind-blowing and kind of blows everything else out the water. Having said that, my relationship with my identity as a rider is actually what I feel is appropriate for me to witness more than anything, And so, because I'm so aware of, how unbalancing riding can be for horses, and a lot of people might say that that's not true, but in my personal experience as a therapist, that's what I've seen. So, it's just me working on myself more than anything, and then seeing what happens. Yeah, that was a very long answer, but that's yes, no, I don't.
No, wow. That's what a journey to have to go on with it.
It's still really interesting now. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
It's still really interesting now because when I see people ride, it's like I said, it's my relationship with my identity on all levels. So when I see people ride, I'm also healing my perspective of them and not judging them or trying to pull them out of the saddle.
And what do the horses say about it?
So the 4 horses, who were like the OGs before I got Layla, they're all totally fine with my dislike. They're all like, yeah, we don't want to be ridden. And
what do they think about people riding horses?
In general, that's a really good question. So, because I haven't actually asked them that. So what's coming through now, though, is that there's this element of they see it as it's necessary now because of the relationship that people have with horses through riding. And for some people, the only way for them to connect with horses is through riding. And like anything, I mean, it's been in place for so long that it's not just going to change like that.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's not, that's what they're saying at the moment. But in terms of it being harmonious for the way that we could be with horses, that's a completely different stream of energy. But they're saying it's necessary at the moment.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like, I mean, it's such a journey, isn't it, to untangle ourselves from this old way of living. It's gonna take time
and compassion for what has been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, thank you. Wow.
Thank you for asking.
I know you wanted to, we were talking before we started recording that you wanted to share about the charities that the book was supporting as well. Before we go into that, is there anything else that you want to share from around the horses, or any message that you feel they want to bring through?
Definitely, yeah. Is what comes through is that this book and their voice and message and energy is for everyone, which obviously ties in with the fact that it's a message of unity. But they're saying, it's for everyone, and that potentially any limited idea of, well, if you're not horsey, then it's not for you. That's not the case. Like, if you're alive right now and on earth, it's for you. And their energy is, I said this to you before we started recording, their energy is offered and gifted to everyone, for all life, again, as that reflection for us to really wake up to who we are and how we can interconnect with ourselves and the planet. And
beautiful. I really like hearing you say that they're gifting their energy, and I really felt that when I ordered the book. It's like, I mean, I have a little horse part, a little bit of past experience with horses, but I wouldn't call myself like a horsey person. It was just like, oh my god, I could just feel that pocket of wisdom. It's just like, oh my god, here's really beautiful, clear, pristine wisdom that wants to come through and land. So
totally. I love all those words you just used. Oh my god, it's so amazing to hear. Yes.
Oh, well done for bringing this through, because it is their voice, but it's also your ability to be in a harmonious frequency with them, to be able to bring that through. So it also says a lot about your frequency and who you are. Oh my god, now I'm seeing galactic stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm just seeing you. I'm like, oh, okay. you're like from wherever, part of you. It's like them is it's very horse energy as well.
I met someone once, and it just came into my mind. She said, because my father is essentially Pakistani, and my name is Persian, so she said, oh, so you're part Persian, part horse. And it was like, oh my god, you've just seen me. Like, it was so funny. She just kind of tuned into my energy, and I hadn't seen that, but when she said it, I was like, yes, okay.
Wow.
Cool.
So would you like to share a little bit about the charities and that the book's connected to?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. So the first charity, so 50% of the proceeds from the first 200 copies sold go to two different charities. So the first charity is called the Springwood Sanctuary, and it's run by an amazing woman called Jackie Howe, and they are currently based in Wales. And essentially it's a sacred space for rescued horses and donkeys, and it's a big herd she looks after. And Jackie also focuses on bringing mindfulness to people, I guess, who are also on that path, but bringing the animal kingdom, nature, and humans together. So she focuses a lot on mindfulness, connecting to the land, listening to the herd, and so she really promotes that. And that's a really important piece, because that's what we've been talking about this whole time, is opening our awareness to connecting with other realms that are available to us. And then the second charity is called the Princess Alia Foundation, and sorry, I feel really connected to this particular organization. So they're based in Jordan, and it's again a non-profit, and it was started up by Princess Alia herself. And they also focus again on creating harmony and balance between the natural kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the human world, and the human kingdom. So they, I guess, are the pillar of lots of different organizations in the area, and they focus on like sustainable education, I want to say eco-friendly communities. I don't know if that's quite right, but community living, which supports the planet as well, animal welfare, and just education in general, educating children in the area about animal welfare. And they also support medically the working horses and donkeys in that area. So they're constantly providing things like, saddle cloths and like bits of protective material for the nose bands, the bridles and things like that, so that the horses are more comfortable and the donkeys are more comfortable. So they're doing a lot of work, and it's really expanded into this huge organization, which is all, non-profit and supported by funding. So yeah.
Oh, how beautiful. That's so lovely that you're giving back in that way.
Yeah, it feels really relevant, feels really important, because I also feel that that's what the horses want, you know. And I don't know whether my human mind would have thought about that, but it definitely came in very strongly from the horses. And it's the same for the poetry book, actually. 50% of the proceeds go to this place I worked in Egypt, in Luxor. It's the name is ACE, Animal Care in Egypt, and they are an equine hospital, and they provide medical treatment for all of the horses and donkeys in the area up to a 500-kilometer radius.
Wow.
Which is mind-blowing when you think about it. So I have worked there, and so I've seen firsthand how much the money is needed, you know, and how much the support and the work is needed that they do. And they're an incredible organization. So there's so many people out there who are doing this great work, and I feel that it's about us all banding together to support each other. You know?
Beautiful. Yeah. Oh, it's so lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Again, I keep coming back to this message of, I want to say, you know, healing energy in general, or integrative energy, is available for all of us, not just from the horses or from this book, but in general from life. And it's just about us tuning in and waking up to that and recognizing that it's here.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
And go buy the book.
Yes, go and buy the book. Oh my God, I can't wait. I've got a stack of books that I want to read at the moment, and I think this has just gone to the top of the pile. I think my afternoon I might just go and like find a nice spot out in the sunshine and just have a good read. It feels like a really powerful, strong book. Yeah. Thank you for bringing it through.
Thank you so much for witnessing it and for holding space for this conversation. Thank you.
God, my absolute pleasure. Yeah. It's really lovely to connect with you.
You too.
Yeah. So where can people find your book?
So it's available on Amazon as a Kindle version at the moment, and it's only available for 99p until the end of today, and then the price goes up, and then the paperback will be here by the end of the week, also available on Amazon. And
the week it's the 3rd of June today, so I better publish this today then.
That's okay.
I will do that. I will get it out there today. Great.
I'd love it if loads of people just watched it and all went for the Kindle. And I also just want to say thank you to everybody who connects with the horses through buying this book. Yeah, beautiful. Yay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, and thank you for everybody who's watched, and enjoy your connection with the horses and with nature, and send you so much love.